The 23-year-old princess believed her weight meant no man would ever want her. When her father gave her to a Viking as punishment, she expected death. But when that powerful warrior took her in his arms and whispered these words, it would change her heart forever. "I was born to protect you." In one of the most powerful kingdoms of northern England, Northumbria, on the coldest winter night of 1347, the royal family's greatest shame was born. Astrid's birth had been so difficult it nearly killed Queen Elena. After 3 days of labor, when the baby was finally born, the court physician Master William's face creased with concern. Astrid was born much larger than a normal baby. Her round face, plump cheeks, and robust body made her different from other royal infants from birth. While Queen Elena wept with joy as she held her daughter, King Magnus anxiously examined the baby's large frame. "This child is twice the size of normal babies," murmured the elderly nurse. "I've never seen such a large baby girl." As the years passed, Astrid's build became even more pronounced. While other children grew thin and delicate, she continued to have a strong, full-figured body. Despite her beautiful face, golden hair, and intelligent blue eyes, everyone first noticed her heavy build. "The princess eats too much," the servants would whisper. "She's always stealing sweets from the kitchen." In truth, Astrid didn't eat more than other children. Her body was simply built differently. But the court staff didn't understand this, constantly blaming her for eating too much. By age 5, other noble children wouldn't want to play with her. They called her Fat Astrid. When she began dance lessons at 7, her instructor struggled to move her gracefully. "Princess, try to be lighter," the dance master would constantly say. A princess should be graceful as a bird, but no matter how hard Astrid tried, her body wasn't graceful like the others. Every step was heavier, every movement more substantial. By age 10, Astrid had begun to feel ashamed when she looked in the mirror. Instead of seeing her beautiful face, she only saw her large body. Dresses would be tight on her, and she couldn't look elegant like other girls. "Mother, why am I not like the others?" she had asked one day, crying. Queen Elena had held her daughter tightly and said, "You're special, darling. God made you strong," but even the mother's heart held worry. How would such a large girl ever marry? When Astrid turned 15, it was time for the royal family to introduce her to society. While other princesses' debut ceremonies were magnificent spectacles, Astrid's was quiet and subdued. That night, when she entered the ballroom, conversations briefly stopped. She looked striking with her beautiful face and elegant hairstyle, but her body's large frame was evident even beneath the finest dress. "Which prince would want to marry such a girl?" whispered young Lord Edmund to his friends. "Who knows what their children would look like?" Such comments continued to reach Astrid's ears. At every social event, every royal visit, people would look at her with critical eyes, then talk among themselves. Astrid began to find solace in books. She would read the love stories from her grandmother's collection, dreaming of someone who might love her as she was. At night she would gaze at the stars from her window, wondering, who could ever love me? When she turned 16, the first serious marriage proposal came. Prince Albert from a neighboring kingdom was considering marrying Astrid to form an alliance between the two kingdoms. When Astrid heard this news, she was overjoyed. Finally, someone wanted her. She had special dresses made, wore her finest jewels, and had her hair styled expertly. The day Prince Albert arrived, Astrid was experiencing the most exciting moments of her life. Perhaps this was the beginning of her fairy tale romance, but the moment the prince saw her, his expression changed. Surprise, then hidden disappointment. He tried to be polite, but his discomfort was clearly visible. "The princess is very robustly built," he commented diplomatically during his private meeting with King Magnus that evening. "She's a bit different from the type of wife I'm seeking." The next morning, Prince Albert left with an urgent excuse. This first rejection opened a deep wound in Astrid's heart. Over the next 2 years, 4 more princes came. All gave the same reaction, polite but definite rejection. Astrid's beauty, intelligence, and character didn't matter at all. Only her body's large frame was seen. After each rejection, Astrid withdrew a little more. She began sitting in corners at social events. She stopped waiting for dance invitations because she knew none would come. I will never marry, she thought now. No one wants me. When Astrid turned 22, Sir Edmund entered her life. This 28-year-old knight was handsome, brave, and a close friend of the royal family. With his golden armor and white horse, he looked like the prince every young woman dreamed of. Edmund had come to the castle as King Magnus's special guest. He participated in meetings about the kingdom's security and worked on battle strategies. With his handsomeness, courage, and intelligence, he captured the attention of all the young ladies at court. Astrid, too, had fallen under Edmund's spell. For the first time in her life, her heart was truly beating for a man. For weeks she watched him from afar. She watched his training, looked for excuses to sit at the same table during meals. This one-sided admiration had driven Astrid to be brave. Maybe Edmund was different from other men. Maybe he could see Astrid's inner beauty. As the grand ball night approached, Astrid was experiencing the greatest excitement of her life. She had commissioned the kingdom's most expensive tailor to make a special dress. Midnight blue velvet with gold embroidery, cinched at the waist. She had her hair styled most beautifully and wore her mother's most precious jewels. Looking in the mirror, she found herself beautiful. Tonight, she thought. Tonight, I'll tell Edmund how I feel. The ball night was held in Northumbria Castle's great hall. Hundreds of noble guests, dressed in their most magnificent clothes, danced to the orchestra. Crystal chandeliers scattered light, and golden decorations sparkled. When Astrid entered the hall, some guests looked at her. She was striking with her beautiful face and elegant bearing, but her body's large frame was immediately noticeable. Some showed pitying smiles. Edmund was chatting with other young knights in the center of the hall. A crowd constantly formed around him. Women were waiting in line to dance with him. Astrid approached Edmund, gathering all her courage. Her heart was beating so fast she could barely breathe. Her hands were trembling, but she was determined. "Sir Edmund," she said in a trembling but resolute voice, "would you dance with me?" The silence of that moment seemed to last forever for Astrid. Edmund looked at her, assessed her large body, then glanced at the men around him. When he realized everyone was watching them, his expression changed. "Dance?" he asked, clear surprise in his voice. "You want to dance with me?" "Yes," Astrid whispered, her face red with embarrassment. The young lords around Edmund began to smile. For them, this situation was entertaining. "Look, my lady," Edmund said, raising his voice so everyone around could hear. "I dance with graceful ladies. Dancing with you would put both me and you in an awkward position." These words spread throughout the hall. Although the music continued playing, conversations around Edmund had stopped. Everyone had heard this embarrassing moment. Astrid's face was burning bright red. As her heart pounded in her chest, tears filled her eyes. But she tried to maintain her dignity. "I understand," she said, trying to keep her voice as calm as possible. "I apologize for disturbing you." But Edmund didn't stop. Perhaps he had drunk too much wine. Perhaps he wanted to show off in front of the young nobles. But he spoke his most devastating words. "Friends," he said loudly, as if making an announcement. "What do you do when faced with such a situation? This lady actually requested a dance from me. How can someone so large imagine dancing with a normal man?" The atmosphere in the hall had completely changed. Some guests found Edmund's words very rude, while others secretly agreed. But everyone had to witness the princess being humiliated to this extent. "A man who marries such a woman," Edmund continued mercilessly, "would both disgrace himself and no one knows what kind of children would be born." "I'm sorry I had to be so blunt about this." Astrid was now on the verge of collapse. But with one last effort she tried to preserve her dignity. "You're right, Sir Edmund," she said, as calmly as her voice would allow. "I truly am a woman no one would want to dance with. Thank you for reminding me of this truth. Have a good evening." With these words, as she left the hall, the silence she left behind was deafening. No one had come to Astrid's defense. That night Astrid cried in her room until dawn. It was the greatest humiliation of her 22-year life. And now she knew the truth. No man would ever want her. The next morning, Edmund's words were being discussed in every corner of the castle. Servants, guards, cooks, everyone was discussing that night and evaluating Astrid's situation. Sir Edmund spoke very harshly, said a young servant, but he spoke the truth. Which man would marry such a large woman? The princess is actually very smart and beautiful, the kitchen maid would try to defend. But that body, could she even bear children? Added the head cook. Would such a large woman give birth to healthy children? When King Magnus heard these gossips, he was furious with rage. His daughter being humiliated in front of everyone had seriously damaged royal prestige. Astrid, he roared, summoning the princess to the throne room the next morning. What is this disgrace? Being rejected in front of everyone like this? When Astrid stood before her father, all the pain from the previous night was still in her heart. She hadn't slept all night, only cried. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale. "Father, I only offered to dance," she said, her voice still trembling. "Just a dance?" Magnus exploded. "Don't you know your situation, Astrid? You're not a normal princess. No man wants to marry you." These words were even more painful than Edmund's words, because they were being said by her own father, Magnus. Queen Elena intervened, tears in her eyes. "Astrid is already very upset. Don't be so harsh with her." "Harsh?" the king shouted. "Elena, this girl is 24 years old. She hasn't received any marriage proposals, and last night she was disgraced in front of everyone. She needs to face the facts now." "What facts?" Astrid asked, tears beginning to well in her eyes. "You are defective, Astrid," her father said without mercy. "No man in this kingdom will ever want you. You're becoming a burden to our dynasty. Every day you become a greater source of shame." That afternoon, King Magnus called an emergency royal council. Queen Elena, Prince Roderick, Astrid's older brother, and Chief Advisor Lord William came together. "The Astrid problem must be definitively solved," Magnus said directly. "This child cannot continue being a burden to our dynasty. Her situation gets worse every day." "What do you mean?" Elena asked anxiously. Lord William opened his documents. "Your Majesty, there have been reports from the north over recent weeks. Viking raids have increased. Last month, 5 of our villages were burned. Dozens of our citizens were kidnapped. But last week we captured an important Viking warrior. What does this have to do with Astrid?" Prince Roderick asked suspiciously. Magnus smiled, but this smile wasn't warm at all. "Very simple. Astrid will be given to this Viking as a wife. She'll be used as a diplomatic tool." The atmosphere in the hall immediately tensed. Elena went wild. "Magnus! Are you going to give our daughter to a barbarian? This is very dangerous." "Dangerous?" Magnus laughed mercilessly. "Her continuing to stay here is more dangerous. She embarrasses our dynasty every day. At least this way she'll be useful." Roderick jumped up. "Father, this is too extreme. Astrid is my sister. You can't send her to her death." "Death?" Magnus said in a cold voice. "No, I'm giving her a chance. Maybe that Viking will want her. Maybe he'll find her useful. At least she'll be gone from here." Lord William detailed the plan. "The Viking we captured is an important member of his clan, Ragnar Ironwolf, son of Jarl Erik. If we give the princess to him, this will be perceived as a major diplomatic gesture, and we can start peace negotiations with the Viking clans." "What if Astrid refuses?" Elena asked on the verge of tears. "Whether she wants it or not doesn't matter," Magnus said in a definitive tone. "This decision has been made. Astrid will be given to this barbarian. Maybe he'll like her. At least she won't continue to bring shame here." That night, Elena went to her daughter's room. Astrid was sitting on her bed, staring at the wall with empty eyes. "Mother," Astrid said, seeing her mother's sad face. "More bad news." Elena began to cry. "Astrid, my dear daughter, your father has made a decision." The announcement of the decision was a complete shock for Astrid. At first she thought her mother was joking. Then she grasped the reality. "To a Viking?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Is father really giving me to a savage?" "This is his political decision," Elena tried to explain. "Maybe this will be a new beginning for you. Maybe that man isn't as bad as you think." "A new beginning?" Astrid began to cry. "Mother, that man could kill me. Father is sending me to my death." Elena hugged her daughter tightly. God will protect you, darling. And maybe that man will recognize your worth. But they both knew this was a very dangerous situation. They were sending Astrid to an uncertain fate. In the deepest dungeons of Northumbria Castle, chained to the cold stone walls with heavy iron, Ragnar Ironwolf was a true Viking legend. This 32-year-old warrior, 2 meters tall, with a muscular body marked with battle scars and golden brown hair reaching his shoulders, presented an impressive sight. Ragnar wasn't just an ordinary Viking warrior. He was the son and heir of Jarl Erik Bloodyaxe, leader of the most powerful clan of the Norwegian fjords. He had grown up on the harsh lands by the edge of icy seas, learning both the arts of war and leadership skills from childhood. Ragnar's childhood had been shaped by Viking values. His father, Jarl Erik, had taught him not only to be strong, but to be just. A true leader, Erik would say, protects the weak, defends the powerless. Strength is not used just to show off, but to help others. These teachings had left deep marks on Ragnar's character. He could be a merciless warrior, but he also had a great heart of compassion. In his clan, women, especially those who were different, were held in great respect. In Viking culture, strong women were known as shieldmaidens. These were defined not only by physical strength, but by strength of spirit. Ragnar had seen many strong women in his life. Some were physically strong, some were intelligent, and some had grown strong by struggling with difficulties. 3 months ago, while conducting a reconnaissance mission in English territory, he had been ambushed by Northumbria troops and captured after a fierce battle. He had fought alone against 20 soldiers, refusing to surrender despite his wounds. Only when he didn't want more blood to be spilled did he finally lay down his weapons. Despite being a prisoner, Ragnar's honor had never been broken. Every morning he would pray to the old gods on the cold stones of the dungeon cell. He would ask Odin for wisdom, Thor for strength, and Freya for love. This ritual helped him maintain his spiritual strength. The English guards had initially been very afraid of him. They had heard terrible stories about the savagery of Viking warriors. It was said that they burned and destroyed villages, kidnapped women and children, and showed no mercy. But after weeks of close contact with Ragnar, the guards realized he was very different from what they thought. He wasn't aggressive, he spoke politely, and he never behaved threateningly. "This Viking is different from the others," Guard Commander Thomas would tell his colleagues. "He's intelligent, educated. He can even talk about philosophical subjects. He's not at all what we expected." Ragnar was indeed different. To become a clan leader, he had learned not only to be strong, but to be knowledgeable. He had been educated in diplomacy, studied different cultures. He had learned to speak English very quickly and could even read Latin. During the long hours in the dungeon, Ragnar analyzed English society. He would chat with the guards, trying to learn their value systems. "In your society," he had asked Guard Thomas one day, "how are women evaluated?" Thomas had thought, "Women's duty is to do housework and bear children. It's important for them to be beautiful and obedient. But how do you treat strong but different-looking women?" Ragnar had continued, "What do you mean?" "For example, a large-built but intelligent and brave woman, or one who is physically strong." Thomas had laughed. "Such women generally can't marry. Men want thin, graceful women. Large women aren't found attractive." This information had left deep impressions in Ragnar's mind. In Viking culture, the situation was completely different. Strong women were preferred because it was believed they would give birth to healthy children. A large build was considered a symbol of strength and fertility. In our culture, Ragnar had said, strong women become the most valuable shield maidens. They are both physically and spiritually strong. Such women are the pride of the clan. Thomas had been surprised. Really? But how do they dance? How do they look graceful? Grace doesn't come only from thinness, Ragnar had explained. True grace comes from controlling one's strength. A strong woman who can control her movements is the most graceful of all. These conversations helped Ragnar understand English society. At the same time, he realized how much he valued his own culture's values. Ragnar's most important quality was his ability to empathize. He could feel others' pain and especially stood by those who suffered injustice. This quality made him not just a strong warrior, but a natural leader. On long winter nights in the cold of the dungeon, Ragnar would think about the future. His clan would certainly come to rescue him, he was sure of that. But he also wondered what this captivity would teach him. Every night as he prayed to the gods, he expected them to show him a sign. "Odin, father of fathers," he would pray, "is this dungeon a punishment or a teaching? What is the path you will show me? Be strong, but show mercy," he would say to himself, repeating the words he learned from his father. "Win victory, but win it justly." Astrid's journey to the dungeons was one of the castle's darkest days. King Magnus's decision had been protested one last time by other members of the royal family. "Magnus, please," Queen Elena had begged, tears in her eyes. "This is too cruel. How can you force Astrid to a barbarian? She's still a child." "A child," the king had roared. "She's 24 years old, and a woman no man wants. At least this way she'll be useful." Prince Roderick had also objected one last time. "Father, this is wrong. Astrid is my sister. There must be other ways than putting her in danger." But King Magnus hadn't changed his mind. "There's no more discussion on this matter. The decision has been made and will be implemented." When the decision was told to Astrid, the princess's first reaction was shock. For long seconds she stared at her father, unable to believe what she heard. "So, I'm really being given to a Viking?" she had asked tremblingly. "Yes," Magnus had said in a cold voice. "You can no longer continue to be a shame to this dynasty." That night, Astrid couldn't sleep at all. She paced in her room, thinking about the future. What did it mean to be given to a Viking? Did those men really kill people? Or were such stories told just to frighten? The next morning when the guards came, Astrid was ready. She had put on a simple traveling dress and packed her few belongings in a small bag. Her farewell to her mother and brother was heartbreaking. "Will we see you again?" Elena had cried. "I don't know, mother," Astrid had said, trying to hold back her tears. "But remember me, and maybe we'll meet again someday." As she descended the dungeon stairs, Astrid's heart was beating wildly. With each step, curiosity and fear increased. What kind of man would she encounter? Was he really as savage as they said? When she reached the dungeon door, Guard Commander Thomas took out the keys. "He's waiting for you inside," Thomas said, giving Astrid a pitying look. "By King Magnus's order, you're being presented to him as a wife." "God help you, young lady." When the door opened, Astrid entered the dark cell. At first she only saw shadows. Then a huge figure moved and stood up. When Ragnar Ironwolf saw the woman standing before him, he was surprised. This wasn't the fearful, weak English lady he had expected. This was a large-built, strong-postured, beautiful-faced woman. But what caught his attention most was the determination in her eyes. "Are you the woman given to me?" Ragnar asked in English with his strong Viking accent. Astrid looked at him. The man she saw before her was very different from the savage barbarian described in stories. Strong, yes, but there was intelligence and a kind of nobility in his eyes. "Yes," Astrid said, trying to keep her voice as calm as possible. "I am Princess Astrid, and apparently I'm now your responsibility." Ragnar studied her for a long time. There was something different about this woman. She wasn't afraid. She seemed sad and hurt, but not afraid. "My name is Ragnar," he said, bowing his head slightly. "Ragnar Ironwolf. And you? Why don't you want to be here?" The directness of the question surprised Astrid. She could have given a diplomatic answer, but something told her this man could hear the truth. "Because no one wants me," she said honestly. "My family found you to get rid of me. I'm not a normal woman. Too big, too large. No man wants to marry me." Surprise appeared on Ragnar's face. This woman was putting herself down, but this made no sense. She was a strong, healthy, beautiful woman. "You look strong," Ragnar said thoughtfully. "In Viking lands, strong women are very valuable. Why do you see yourself badly?" This question deeply affected Astrid. For the first time in her life, someone had called her strong. Because everyone says so," she replied. "I'm too fat, too big. I can't dance, I can't walk gracefully. Grace, Ragnar said, approaching her, comes from strength. You are a strong woman. Where does this strength come from? Astrid thought. I don't know. Maybe from difficulties. From always being excluded. Exactly, Ragnar said, smiling. You are a warrior. Life has taught you to fight. This has made you strong. In that moment between the cold walls of the dungeon cell, a new beginning was born for two hearts. From the next day on, Astrid and Ragnar were given a small cottage next to the castle. This was part of the diplomatic gesture. It wasn't considered appropriate to keep them in bad conditions like a dungeon. The cottage was simple but clean. 2 separate rooms, a common sitting area, a simple kitchen and hearth. The first days passed in silence and uncertainty. Instead of shutting himself in the house, Ragnar began working in the garden. He knew how to grow plants and established a small vegetable garden. As Astrid watched him, she was surprised to see how gently this tough warrior dealt with the soil. Are you a farmer? She had asked one day. Ragnar had laughed. Every Viking is both warrior and farmer. In peacetime we work the land, in wartime we fight with swords. Could you teach us which plants are edible? Astrid had dared to ask. This simple question formed the first real bond between them. Ragnar began to show her not only how to grow vegetables, but also medicinal plants. This herb heals wounds, he said, showing some leaves. This one relieves pain. Viking women know this knowledge. When warriors are wounded, they heal them. In our land, women don't know such things, Astrid said. We only learn embroidery, music, and dancing. Why? Ragnar asked in surprise. Isn't saving lives more important than dancing? This conversation had shaken Astrid's worldview. For the first time in her life, she began learning practical, useful things. As the weeks passed, trust developed between them. Ragnar would tell Astrid about Viking culture, and she would explain English traditions to him. In Viking lands, Ragnar would say, women are respected equally with men. Shieldmaidens participate in battles, make decisions together with men. Really? Astrid would be amazed. Women participate in battles? Of course. Some of our greatest warriors are women. They fight not with physical strength, but with courage and intelligence. These stories expanded Astrid's imagination. Perhaps there were different ways of being a woman. One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Ragnar turned to her. Astrid, why do you see yourself so badly? You are a strong, intelligent, and beautiful woman. Astrid was surprised. Beautiful? Me? Yes, by Viking standards you are very beautiful. Your strong body shows you would bear healthy children. Your intelligent eyes reflect your wisdom. But I'm fat. Astrid tried to object. You are strong, Ragnar corrected. And strength is beautiful. As the months passed, Astrid began to change physically as well. The Viking lifestyle, garden work, homemade meals, active movement, strengthened her. She began to lose weight, but more importantly, she began to feel strong. Ragnar was also changing. Despite coming as a prisoner, the peaceful life he lived with Astrid had made him happier. He had begun to smile. His hard Viking mask had fallen. One autumn evening, as they sat by the fire, Ragnar looked at Astrid. Astrid, he said in his soft but strong voice, I want to tell you something. Astrid turned to him, her heart racing. You are a true Viking woman. Strong-spirited, brave, honorable. I love you. These words shook Astrid's world. For the first time in her life, someone was telling her they loved her. But she began. You are perfect, Ragnar interrupted. Exactly as you are perfect. I was born to protect you, Astrid. When tears began to flow, Ragnar took her in his arms. Their first kiss was the union of two wounded hearts. Ragnar's clan had taken action when they couldn't get news of their leader for a long time. Jarl Erik was making secret plans to rescue his son. One winter night during a snowstorm, Viking warriors approached the castle. But this time, they came not to fight but for a diplomatic solution. Ragnar explained the plan to Astrid. My clan will come, but I don't want war to break out. Will you come with me? Where? Astrid asked. Home to Viking lands. You'll come there as my wife. Astrid hesitated. But I'm English. Will they accept me? You're Viking now, Ragnar said, smiling. You have a Viking spirit in your heart. That night Astrid made her decision. Instead of this ordinary, insecure life, she would choose an adventurous but love-filled life with Ragnar. When Ragnar's clan came, King Magnus was forced to negotiate. Jarl Eric's power and Ragnar's status convinced the English to make peace. I want my son and his wife, Jarl Eric said. In return, I offer you peace. When Astrid spoke with her father Magnus for the last time, she was already a different woman. Confident, strong, loved. You've changed, Magnus said in amazement. I found myself, Astrid said proudly. I found myself. When they reached Ragnar's Norwegian lands, Astrid was met with a great surprise. The Viking women welcomed her warmly. Welcome, woman chosen by Ragnar, said Ingrid, wife of Jarl Eric. You look strong. You'll bear good children. The wedding ceremony was magnificent. According to Viking traditions, Astrid and Ragnar were united before the gods. They married with the blessing of Odin, Thor, and Freya. Years passed. Astrid and Ragnar had 3 strong children. Astrid became a true Viking queen. She trained as a shieldmaiden, participated in clan affairs. Most importantly, she learned to love herself. She no longer felt ashamed of her large body, but carried it with pride. One day, news came from her old life. Sir Edmund, remembering the night he had humiliated Astrid, wanted to apologize. But Astrid was no longer that small, broken princess. Apology accepted, she said coldly but honorably. But I'm no longer part of that past. Ragnar stood beside her. This is my wife, he said proudly, my strongest shieldmaiden. Years later, when they grew old, Astrid and Ragnar would tell their children their story. How do you find true love? The children would ask. First you learn to love yourself, Astrid would say. Then you find someone who will love you as you are. And you never give up, Ragnar would add. Love comes from unexpected places. Astrid's story became legend in Viking lands. The English princess no one wanted had become the strongest Viking queen. And most importantly, she had learned to love herself. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Share in the comments which moment moved you the most. Don't forget to share this beautiful story that proves true love transcends physical boundaries with your loved ones. This story shows us that true love looks not just at external beauty, but at the beauty of the soul. Ragnar and Astrid's story is a legend that gives hope to all of us. Every person deserves to find someone who will love them just as they are.